Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creating a New World, where we talk about the 12 Visions world, a world of wealth, health, peace, happiness, and prosperity. I'm your host, Bill Hunsaker. I'm a self-leader, which means I think, decide, and act for myself, and I'm also a conscious being who perceives and integrates reality to create values to share with others. I'd like to welcome my guests. First, I have the chair of the 12 Visions Party of New Jersey, Bob McCaffrey. Welcome, Bob.
Hi, Bill. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Bob.
And I also have the treasurer of the 12 Visions Party, Harry Dolgen. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Thanks, Bill, and hi, Bob. Hi, everybody.
Okay. Would anyone like to read the list of 12 visions which describe the 12 visions world that we're talking about creating?
Yeah, why not? Let me go.
Okay.
First. Let me read it.
Go
I'm
right
actually
ahead.
reading it from Mark Hamilton's SOS Visions, Society of Secrets, if anybody wants to know. Okay, vision number 1, become the person you were meant to be. Vision number 2 is live the life you were meant to live. Vision number 3, feel extraordinary. Vision number 4, stop aging. Vision 5, get the job of your dreams. Vision 6, start the company you've always wanted. Vision 7, embrace the lover of your fantasies. That's for all you unmarried people out there. Just kidding. Vision 8, diet down to the body you've always envied. I need that one. Vision 9, become a genius. Vision 10, surround yourself with geniuses. Vision 11, ride a prosperity wave that will make you a millionaire. And Vision 12, enjoy perfect physical and mental health.
Thank you, Harry. That sounds like a wonderful place to live, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in now, but this show is about how we all together can create that world. Today we're going to discuss Vision 9, Become a Genius. I'm going to start the reading, and what we're going to do is trade off and basically read all the way through the introduction to this vision, and then we'll discuss it. And this is the author, Mark Hamilton, speaking. As my mind's eye was still admiring the slim and sexy people in my 8th vision, I started noticing something else about them, something startling. Those people with beautiful bodies also had brilliant minds. My 9th vision was showing me ordinary people tomorrow were very smart. In fact, they were geniuses. They had both awesome bodies and minds. A shiver of excitement went through me as I witnessed perhaps our greatest childhood wish come true tomorrow. We were extremely bright. Even if you think you are dull today, my 9th vision showed me you were a genius tomorrow. In my 9th vision, I was there, in the 12 visions world. The stagnation trap around your mind finally came off. We know now that the stagnation trap was the mutant bicameral mentality, a disease of the conscious mind. That trap devastated your human potential. But tomorrow, you left behind your bicameral tendencies. Through these new techniques, you cured your mind of the mutant bicameral mentality, as further taught in the First Insight, Book 3. You then naturally made the evolutionary jump into Neothink. Using Neothink to make stunning wide-scope integrations of knowledge and major advancements of new knowledge, you were a genius by today's standards. Let me tell you a little about becoming a genius. It is well known that most people think in words. It is also well known that a few people, and they are all geniuses such as Einstein, for instance, think in pictures. By the way, for the first time in my life, My 12 visions all came to me in pictures. Of course, you cannot control how you think. You are either a genius or you are not. Most are not. But in today's new mentality of neothink, the ordinary person such as myself, when I had my 12 visions, will think in pictures. And by seeing in pictures, you can see the future before it happens. Okay, Harry, why don't you pick up there and read through the second to last paragraph on the next page. No, wait a minute. Go ahead and read through to the last full paragraph on the next page.
Okay, I'll be more than happy to. Let me explain how. Neothink works by building a puzzle, piece by piece, in any area of life. A person wants to excel or know the future, say in business or love. In most areas of life, the ordinary brain subconsciously absorbs an ongoing flow of information, whether playing poker, or purchasing stock, whether watching the news, or watching a sporting event. Your mind subconsciously absorbs ever-flowing bits of information. Those little bits of information are little puzzle pieces. Everybody automatically does this. Now, through common denominators, you can quickly snap together those little pieces of floating information into a solid puzzle. In fact, any ordinary person can handle smaller pieces to any large, sweeping puzzle that normally goes over his head, normally well beyond his scope of knowledge, the exclusive territory of geniuses. Throughout the 12 visions, you have learned how to begin snapping those little pieces together to build the large puzzle. Start by snapping your power thinking list into your mini-day schedule. That's in Vision 5. Before you know it, you can see and operate at a level that before was well beyond your scope of knowledge and power. At first, when I used Neothink, this is Mark Hamilton speaking, it seemed to me like magic. As I learned to build my success puzzles, unique puzzle pictures would form before my eyes. I started seeing wide-scope pictures of new knowledge only geniuses could see. As I snapped together my 12 visions into a picture of the 12 visions world, I realized I was seeing and thinking in sweeping pictures, beyond others, just like the geniuses. In fact, people who read my 12 visions said I was a genius. Yet, I knew I was no genius. I was an ordinary guy who was experiencing Neothink. I saw how people in my 9th vision quickly snapped together the puzzle pieces into their puzzles of interest. I saw how ordinary people easily handled the smaller pieces to any large puzzle. They could easily build those smaller pieces and snap them one by one into their growing puzzles. After a while, as they snapped their puzzles together, the puzzle pictures started forming before their eyes. Now, they were seeing and thinking in pictures, just like the geniuses. And the 12 visions showing the puzzle pictures of tomorrow's 12 vision world provides a perfect example of how this Neothink works.
Thank you, Harry. Bob, if you would pick up there and read through the next page and the completion of that last paragraph at the top of the following page, please. And I'll finish up.
Okay. Now, here is how the ordinary people in my 9th vision could see the future. As with any puzzle picture, a point came when they could see what the puzzle pictures were going to look like before the pieces were in place. Therefore, those ordinary people already knew the future, the pictures, before a person who thinks in words even had a clue. They knew the future before it actually happened. With Neothink, ordinary people tomorrow instantly became geniuses with enormous advantages far beyond ordinary people today. Enormous advantages. Moreover, I saw in my 9th vision that those missing pieces, say in business and love, were the exclusive missing pieces in life. Those always missing mysterious pieces to money, power, and love, not in our lives today. Through Neothink, ordinary people tomorrow knew those pieces were, what they looked like, and they quickly snapped those pieces in place. Ordinary people not only controlled, but they also created their own future. Almost no one today ever sees those missing pieces, and we lament that something more must excite to something more must exist to life. With the Neothink, however, we will see snap into place and enjoy the something more with Neothink. Nothing will be missing in our lives. As motivated geniuses in the 12 Visions world, we looked back ourselves in the anti-civilization and thought we were partly retarded. In a sense, we were. You see, the human mind can naturally grow forever, yet our mind had stopped growing. In the end, we were pinned down to straight ruts. So natural growth of our minds had been retarded and stopped in the anti-civilization. Looking back, we often wonder why our minds had stopped growing. For making breakthroughs and creating value seemed so natural and rewarding in the 12 Visions world. We loved being so creative and smart, and it really bothered us that we were so dull before. We finally realized why our minds had stopped growing in the anti-civilization. Our minds had lost their human potential to the forces of nature because of the mutant bicameral mentality, Vision 3. Our human potential is limitless value creation, which means our minds can grow forever. What exactly opens our human potential, and why does it close down and die today? One's deeply rooted, motivated drive will forever generate and regenerate one's creative energy. Vision 1. When motivation gets replaced by regeneration in today's anti-civilization, however, our human potential dies.
Thank you, Bob, and I'll continue on. This deep motivation comes and goes early in our lives today in the anti-civilization. Of course, I am talking about one's deep, lifelong motivational drive, not surface temporary motivation inspired by motivational tapes or self-improvement seminars. One's very deep motivational drive in life dictates his or her eventual success and happiness. To understand why, we have to go yet a level deeper to answer the question, what constitutes human motivation? We have to get down to the root cause of our seemingly inborn motivational drives or seemingly inborn lack of motivational drive. That brings us back to our infancy. There we can observe the natural thrill felt in human babies while developing human consciousness. Humans start out mimicking reactions of those around them, as do most other animals. But we humans continue developing greater and greater levels of awareness. Our minds keep developing and developing far beyond other animals into human consciousness. Infants and toddlers feel a natural thrill that generates a lot of natural energy and happiness as they experience more and more control when entering human consciousness. That exhilarating thrill and power is a natural reaction to human consciousness. Unfortunately, as we grow up in the anti-civilization, the power of our human consciousness becomes diseased and badly weakened relative to our Neothink minds tomorrow. Eventually, we cannot even remember our childhood exhilaration for life. In today's anti-civilization, a world of mutant bicameral mentalities, unbeknownst to us, unnatural forces of nature, described in Vision 3, dominate our lives. The resulting burden of life, Vision 2, destroys the natural thrill of life. But the thrill exists in very young children before the burden sets in. the thrill of life once existed in you. That thrill for expanding awareness and control over life that exudes happiness and energy constitutes a human being's deep motivational drive in life as a toddler. To whatever degree you still have a small bit of that thrill as an adult determines your motivational drive and energy level and dictates your success and happiness in life. By the way, the emotional experience of that thrill is intense happiness, excuse me, which we witness frequently in young children but seldom in adults. If that thrill for life were not crippled with an invasive mutant bicameral mentality during your childhood, then your motivational drive would have remained throughout your entire life as it was during your first few years of life. While enthusiastically and easily integrating knowledge to the next level and the next, you would have gone on an amazing vector of value creation and brought values to the world beyond many of today's most successful people. Indeed, driving ahead on your Friday night essence, Vision 1, in a living job, Vision 5, you would have become a creative genius among the world's most valuable and richest people.
Wow. So a lot of elements to that you just read. That we
Yes,
just
there
read.
is.
Wow. Where do you begin?
I mean, the basic idea here is that if allowed to, you as a person grows from an infant to a child to an adult, you would with encouragement and with help in learning the tools within the tools of Neothink, you would naturally become a genius and be able to go out in the world and create values and share them and prosper. But unfortunately, the world we live in today doesn't encourage people to continue to find joy in growing and developing mentally and learning more and more and integrating that knowledge and using it to create values. In the world we live in today, everyone's told, no, you got to work, you got to earn a living, and you can't be wandering around daydreaming. You can't, you got to live the life everyone else is living, a life full of frustration and mindless, endless work and no joy, basically.
In other words, you have to live your life according to society standards and their rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting to me? One of you guys explain to me I know what this means, mutant bicameral mentality. I see it. I was in New York City with my wife on a New York City subway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And people are just staring out into space. Some of them are working, some are not. But people are just so involved in their own lives. They look like they're automated robots. People don't talk to each other. They're just sitting there thinking about their problems. And me and my wife were just talking away. So I know for me, in order to be conscious, you have to stop and think, which a lot of people are not doing because they're so involved in their life. So either Bob or Bill, just tell people what they mean by, I guess, the mutant mentality, mutant bicameral mentality for the new readers, the new people coming on the show.
Do you wanna talk about it first, Bob?
I'll let you do it.
Okay. The basic idea is that from childhood, unfortunately, by the way, parents are taught by their childhood to raise their children. You are taught not to think for yourself,
right,
and to do things because other people tell you to do them.
right.
I mean, one of the first lessons you learn from your parents in most households, not all, but in most, is do it because I told you so. Do it do it because I said so, not, and you're not given an explanation of why.
Right.
So you learn that if someone tells you to do something, you don't question it, you don't ask why, you do it. And this creates a follower. A follower is a person that relies more on other what are called outside authorities, other people, than on their own judgment.
Right.
So most people today, unfortunately, are just out there looking for people to tell them what to do, because that's what they've been taught since they were infants.
And not to be able to think, to stop and question
Mm-hmm.
anything that's going on in their life, because they want to follow other people, other authorities.
So most people go to the TV and watch television shows, news shows, talk shows, reality programs.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, to find out what they should think and what they should feel.
Good point. Yeah, that's important that you explain that, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people don't understand what mutant bicameral mentality, what that means. So now at least they have an understanding. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
and people are so used to following. I see at work with employees at work, they're afraid to think on their own and just go ahead and do something. They want somebody to tell them exactly what to do before they go ahead and do it. And in a way, that's sad. You know, it's difficult to take the young kids today and try and encourage them to just, you know, you come on the job to do a job, you know, and you have an idea what has to be done, and sometimes you're going to run into a problem, and you have to try and solve the problem yourself, you know, and it's okay to make a mistake.
So that's what they're afraid of. Yeah.
A lot of times today, you know, people are afraid, oh, you can't make mistakes, you know, it's
Right.
bad if you make a mistake.
Yeah.
But you know, the process of learning is making mistakes and learning from your mistakes. And like I explained to one fella earlier this week, you know, you go out there and you make a mistake. Like if you're going to put something on the wall and you make a mistake and you put it up a little crooked, don't worry about it. We can take it down and patch the holes and put it up again, you know. But at least take the initiative and the effort to go ahead and try and get the job done yourself without having to have somebody else do it for you.
Yeah, well, nobody's ever told us that it's okay to make a mistake, that we're human beings.
Right.
We have this perfectionist view of life.
Right.
We have to be perfect. We have to do things perfectly.
Yeah.
Well, that's wrong. Yeah, yeah.
Plus, unfortunately, when parents or teachers show a child in today's world, teach a child something, they often aren't patient enough to let the child learn, and they end up saying, "Oh, forget it, I'll do it," and they do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get people who are afraid to try anything on their own.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And they're waiting either for someone to tell them what to do or for someone to do it for them.
Oh, I experienced that growing up. Absolutely, absolutely. They lose patience with you, and they say, "Okay, I'll take over and I'll do it myself."
Right.
I got you. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. That makes a lot of sense. Excellent.
Okay. Any other comments on that topic, or any other questions about it?
No.
Okay. We'll move on. And we're going to play a little bit of Where is the Force?
Uh-oh.
And the subject today is home ownership. Bob, where's the Force?
Oh.
Where do you go?
Well, there's a lot of areas.
Yeah.
The Force is, one of the things in living in a community is, you know, you have to maintain your property in a certain way, and you have to do certain things, and you're not allowed to do this. I know in my property in Tennessee, for example, I was able to go down there and do whatever I wanted to do. If I wanted to put up an outbuilding or a shed, I could just go ahead and do that. And like here in New Jersey, before you go putting up an outbuilding or a shed or even make some kind of an improvement on your home, you got to go to the town and get a permit and make sure it's okay with them for you to go ahead and do it. For example, even with the addition that I put on my house, first thing I had to go do, because the town requirements require on a street you have a 20-foot setback off the curb, and you know, I'm on a little corner lot that's roughly 90 feet in the front and 30 feet in the back. It's a triangular piece, and it's got about 110 feet or so on the front, and goes about 95 feet deep, something like that. But I just don't have the clearance. Actually, if I go by today's standards, where they want you to have on each road. Now, I'm on a corner street, so I don't have just a front yard. I got 2 front yards. So I have to maintain that 20-foot clearance, supposedly, on both sides, which cuts me down to I have less than a third of the property to be able to put a house on. By today's standard, I wouldn't be able to put a house on this property. I was able to put the addition on, but what I had to do is apply for a variance, go to a number of people around, everyone within 200 feet of radius of my house. I got to go to them and have them sign a petition that it's okay with them for me to go ahead and do this expansion. And then once I get them signed, I submit it to the town, and then they give me the approval to go ahead and put the addition on. So that's one of the areas where the force is.
Wow. Yeah, that's yeah. That for me, home ownership. Just remember, most people, you own a home. If you have a mortgage, you technically don't own the home. The bank owns the home, number one. Now, if you own the home free and clear, where there's no mortgage, right? And just look at all the foreclosures. I don't know how many people know about the foreclosure rate.
Even if you own it free and clear, you still don't own it, because you have to pay your taxes on it. If you don't pay your taxes on it, they'll take it away.
And if you're behind in your payments,
right,
mortgage payments, what happens? You go to a pre-foreclosure type of thing, right? And then it gets worse from there. So it's fear. People, they scare the hell out of you.
You don't own the home. The home owns you.
Yeah, good point.
That's actually the way it is.
There's so many areas to cover, Bill. You might as well just chime in.
It's similar to having a boat. It's a black hole you keep throwing money in.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, my perspective, I've never been a homeowner, although my parents were homeowners, and I saw some of the difficulties they had, and that was even well before the current era, where home ownership is kind of shaky due to the economy and the crash of the home value bubble, whatever it's called. But I see other aspects too. If you live in an area where they have some kind of homeowners association, or if you're in like a condo situation where they can tell you what color you can paint the outside of your house. They can tell you, what you can have in your front yard, or even your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree that homeowners don't really own their homes. Either the bank or the local municipal government owns their homes, because if they stop paying either one,
the homes are gone.
They repossess them. They take them back.
They don't pay the taxes, like Bob said. Right. Mm-hmm. The home is free and clear. Still, if you don't pay the taxes, they can still take the home.
Right. So you don't really own it.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Yeah.
I like that subject. That's a good subject.
Yeah. Another example I had a 1979, I think it was Chevette. Somewhere back in that area, I had a Chevette anyway, that my wife and I had bought brand new. And we used it for a number of years, and then naturally, as vehicles get older, you have problems with them. So I had this Chevette. It blew a head gasket, and I set it on the property here, and naturally the registration expired, and because the town doesn't like that, they don't allow you. The vehicle, if it's going to be on your property, it has to be registered.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not registered, currently registered, you either have to put it in a garage and have it contained in a garage, and if you don't have it in the garage, then you're not allowed to keep it on the property. And I basically had someone from the town came here and gave me a summons, and I had 2 days to get rid of that vehicle. If I didn't get rid of it, I was going to have to pay a $500 fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame because it's something that I was looking to experiment with. I had been doing some reading and some studying about electric cars, and I was interested in playing with that idea and setting that Chevette up as an electric car. But due to the regulations and the requirements and the fact that I didn't have the room in my garage to put it in the garage, I just had to comply and get rid of the car. So instead of building myself an asset, it wound up costing me $25 to have it taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And you resent the fact someone coming around checking your registration ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's something that happened. I mean, it's something they do, and unfortunately, it was compounded by the fact that I had to sit in here right alongside the house, and the school bus picked up the kids here right on the corner. So naturally, in the fall, the kids are into football and stuff like that, and they're out there throwing the football around, and they happened to hit the hatchback window and broke the hatchback, and then I had to take and cover it out with a tarp, which made it more of an eyesore.
Yeah.
And somebody finally put in a complaint about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what did it.
And all it takes is one neighbor to put in a complaint, and they don't even have to say who they are to make the complaint. They can do it unanimously, and if they do it, the town just follows through, and
because it stood out.
Control.
Yeah, other people are jealous, and the car stood out, and someone had to open up their mouth, and they sent somebody to check you out. That started the whole negative process. If you
go around a block here, in a number of places right around within a couple of blocks, there were people that had 2-3 cars that were just sitting idle and had been sitting there for years, covered, and because nobody complained, they were still there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, that's the government, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I happen to have one particular neighbor that happens to be a chronic complainer, and he's been a complainer since I first moved into Lake Hiawatha, which goes back to 1980. My kids used to visit with friends over here right in this area where I'm living now, and they were working on cars, the hobbies that they were building and creating for when they got their driver's license. And this particular party did a lot of complaining about the things that they were doing also.
Wow. Unbelievable. All right. I mean, enough said about that. That's frustrating.
That's what it was.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Very frustrating for you, Bob.
Okay, thank you. That was an excellent discussion. Now we'll move on to how we're going to create the 12 Visions world. Basically, the 12 Visions movement is a movement that is going to create the 12 Visions world by electing a 12 Visions president who will depoliticize the federal government, and this will be followed by depoliticizing the state governments. In other words, removing initiatory force and creating protection-only organizations that you have a choice whether or not you want to use their services. I've decided that we're going to start out this part of the program by reading the Prime Law. So would anyone like to read the Prime Law? I know I've kind of sprung this on you, so you may not have it handy.
I got to flip the pages. I'll read it if you want, Bob, unless you want to read it. Huh?
I got it.
Go right ahead.
The Prime Law. The fundamental of protection. The preamble. The purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. The function of government is to provide the conditions that let the individual fulfill that purpose. The prime law guarantees those conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force, fraud, coercion by any person or group against any individual, property, or contract. Article 1. No person, group of persons, or government shall initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual's self, property, or contract. Article 2. Force is morally and legally justified only for protection of those who violate Article 1. Article 3. No exceptions shall exist for Articles 1 or 2. That's the
Thank you,
prime
Bob.
law.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Okay, we are going to continue our reading and discussion of the national platform. Harry, do you want to go ahead and read from the top of page 12 where it says 3,000-year-old secret through the beginning of the next section, which is headed A New Dimension?
Sure. This is we're talking about a section called the prosperity option. Am I right? This is part of the prosperity option.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, it's the next section after the prosperity.
It says 3,000-year-old secret.
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about the 3,000-year-old secret.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to sharply define, this is Mark Hamilton speaking, by the way. I'm going to sharply define the highly guarded 3,000-year-old secret that would send any nation and all its people to the richest levels the world has ever known. For millennia, the political leaders of the world have waged wars and even starved their own people to death in order to guard this secret. Once it is out, America and all her people will become rich, and I'm going to further reveal the secret in this section. In order to open our flight to riches, I must first close our fall into poverty. In all civilizations throughout history, the more powerful and imposing the rule of man, the more tyrannical and poor the society. America's prosperity will end, and her fall into poverty will continue under steadily growing rule of man. If we do not eradicate the fundamental ingredient that nourishes the rule of man, we will steadily sink into poverty and eventually into tyranny. Sorry, guys, tyranny. That fundamental ingredient is initiatory force. For man to rule over others, over large populations, requires the ability to force those populations to obey their political leaders. Yet, how can government lead a nation without that power of force? Let us look more closely at the concepts of lead and force. Let us take into account parameters. The government should lead with use of force, if necessary, when it comes to protecting us from force or threat of force. Protecting the people was the original intent of our government, and as you will see in the pages that follow, protecting the people is the one and only valid purpose of government. In other words, self-defense force against those initiating force is the proper role of government. Government should lead when it comes to protecting us. Lead with the use of self-defense force, if necessary, which includes the military, police protection, courts, justice, prisons. With those parameters around the government's role to lead and to use force, the government plays a vitally important role towards our prosperity and well-being. Now, should the government go beyond protecting us to impose its left-wing or right-wing political agendas upon us? Should politicians and bureaucrats impose those agendas upon us through their laws and regulations that are backed by force? If those laws and agendas go beyond the parameters of self-defense force necessary to protect citizens and their property, then those laws and regulations enter the parameters of initiatory force. Within the parameters of initiatory force comes the rule of man, men and women, forcing their political agendas, left-wing or right-wing, upon the populace. If we disagree with those agendas, what then? We are forced by man-made agenda law to obey. With those expanded parameters around the government's role to lead and to use force, the government plays a deadly role against our prosperity and well-being. With initiatory force, government power goes beyond its one valid purpose of protection. Government transforms from a valuable protection service into a destructive ruling class that steadily replaces economic freedom with political power, which inevitably pulls a nation down into poverty and eventually tyranny, as is happening now in America. All laws and regulations within the parameters of self-defense force are good and necessary. All laws and regulations that go beyond those parameters of protections, laws and regulations that push political agendas, liberal or conservative, those enter the parameters of initiatory force and must be eliminated in order to end the rule of man and consequently end poverty and eventual tyranny. But how can we, the people, get control of our government, embrace laws and regulations based on protection and self-defense force, and eradicate laws and regulations based on political agendas and initiatory force? How do we begin to stop rule of man, poverty, and eventual tyranny? You want me to keep going, Phil?
No, I'll pick up there. I have the answer. It is called the Prime Law. The Prime Law was developed as the tool to embrace good laws and regulations for our protection and eliminate bad laws and regulations for our politicians' agendas. The Prime Law can cap and clean the massive spill of bad political laws and regulations and get back America's clean sea of economic freedom. In 1787, this looming leak of bad political laws and regulations was not yet seen by our founding fathers. Today, with the out-of-control rule of man leak polluting our economic freedom nearly to the point of no return, we have one last chance with the Prime Law. Its separation of bad political laws and regulations from good protection-only laws and regulations can save our precious America. Excuse me. This clean separation was missed by our founding fathers and is the missing ingredient to a perfect constitution that clears out and keeps out the insidious rule of man that will pull America into poverty and tyranny. The Prime Law is an amendment to the U.S. Constitution, will purify America's freedom and lead all of us to a prosperity no civilizations of the world have ever seen before. So let us ask one last time. Beyond the function of protection, should politicians and bureaucrats be leading our lives? Should we allow the rule of man? I say no. I have developed an entirely new political system, or better described as a non-political system, to lead the country, limiting government in its leadership to protection only while eliminating the rule of man. We must first remove the ruling class political weapon of initiatory force, leaving our government with only one form of force, non-political self-defense force against those violating us by using or threatening initiatory force against us. The Prime Law is our tool to accomplish that otherwise impossible feat.
Wow. Man. But just you got to remember, we've never ever lived in a civilization where there hasn't been government and a ruling class and initiatory force. So, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. But it's not going to happen overnight. We have to pretty much stimulate people in this anti-civilization and tell them what the 12 Visions Party stands for and what we're trying to do, rather than try to educate them. And I don't know. It's a daunting task as far as I'm concerned, guys.
Yeah. I would love to live in a world where you don't have to lock your doors, where you can go out in the evening and after it's dark and not be afraid of being attacked by people, where you can,
Right.
you know, where you can, you know, where you can buy products and goods and not be afraid of being ripped off and gypped by dishonest people. And I mean, to me, that's the kind of world I would like to live in. And that's a world that didn't really even exist before, although some people like to say that we had that kind of world. But even back, way back, you know, when people say, oh, you could leave your doors unlocked and walk around at night, people still got hurt, just not as often or as much as they do today.
Good point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, what a world. Yeah.
I mean, this section talks a lot about the rule of man, and that may be an unusual concept for some people, but it basically means, you know, you and I are subject to the political ideas of other ordinary people. I mean, politicians, people who are elected to office, aren't, you know, aren't smarter or better or superior to the rest of us. They're just like the rest of us and have the same weaknesses and same whims and ideas and the same, you know, everything that all the rest of us have. So, I mean,
well, they have one thing more than what we have. They have the power. And they have the power primarily because we, the people, when we vote for them, turn over that power to them. And that's the major difference that they have over the individual.
Yes, and they can take that power and force us to accept their ideas and whims and
yes,
and
unfortunately,
or, you know, or whatever. And that's the problem. I mean, I did not vote last year.
Nor did I.
In the presidential election.
I didn't either.
No, I didn't vote in the presidential election 2 years ago, and I did not vote last year. And I will not vote again until we have a 12 Visions president or other 12 Visions candidates for office. And those are the only people I will vote for. Because voting for anybody else, you know, basically creates the illusion that you agree with what's going on.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. What was I going to... Is there a place on the ballot? I thought I heard in one of the Neil Think calls about having no political affiliation, non-affiliated, when you go into the ballot box.
yeah,
There's a section on the bottom that says non-affiliated.
Have you voted recently, Harry?
Yeah, but I don't recall. It's always been either Republican or Democrat, and I don't recall if it had an area that said unaffiliated.
there's also a place though where you can put in a write-in candidate.
Right. And,
What I did
and in
the
addition to
presidential
that,
election,
yeah, I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
which is what I did in the presidential election. I wrote in Drew Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can do that when you go to the ballot box.
Yeah, you can do that.
I didn't know
But
that. Okay.
also on the ballot is basically what you're talking about, Harry. But when you become an unaffiliated, or independent candidate, you can put a slogan next to your name. And that's why sometimes on the ballot you can see candidates for the Libertarian Party, the Constitution Party, the Socialist Party, the Green Party.
Tea Party.
Yeah. And that's why you can see that, because they're not really political parties, at least not in New Jersey. In other states it's different, but they're not political parties. They're they're independent candidates that are running under a slogan that just happens to name a group that they're involved in.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay.
And in New Jersey, when we have a presidential candidate, they'll be an independent candidate also, but next to their name will be the slogan 12 Visions Party.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. And one other question with the we're polarized nowadays in this world, meaning we have a ruling class, and then we have the masses, who are the suppressed class, or now it's turning into an underclass. By the ruling class, who are we actually talking about? Because even the very rich businessmen are being subjected to, all kinds of problems from a ruling class. Are we talking about just the people who are making the decisions for our government in the ruling class?
I would say no. You also have dishonest businessmen
Yeah.
who use money to buy influence to get, congressmen and senators to vote their way on proposed laws.
Okay.
And therefore they're part of the ruling class also.
So who is really the ruling class? Can you specifically, who is
The ruling class?
Most of the control of the commodities of the world.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's also the politicians, even though because the politicians have the power to market their influence to anyone with sufficient money, and they create laws that supposedly prevent people from being bribed or bought off, but those laws have so many loopholes that someone can pay off a politician by paying for their child's education.
Good point. Okay. You cleared that up, guys. Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
Yep. So we can't know everyone who's part of the power elite because they disguise themselves. They look like ordinary businessmen, but in the meantime, they're using the money they amass, the dishonest ones, to buy power and influence in the government.
Okay. Because that term is used so loosely, ruling class, that most people like myself don't really know who's a part of it. I understand the dishonesty part, but who actually makes it up? That's why. But you cleared it up.
That was an excellent question, Harry. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how you can create the 12 Visions world.
Absolutely.
And that is, there are many ways. One way is by telling other people about this program, or telling other people about the 12 Visions movement and what it is. But you can also help create the 12 Visions world by getting involved, by contacting your local state's 12 Visions party and getting involved. The easiest way to do that is to go to the website tvpnc.org, and I'll repeat that one more time, tvpnc.org, and there's a section on that website that I believe says either get involved or something along those lines, and you just put in your contact information and someone will contact you. You can also help by supporting the show, and you can support the show most simply the same way I said about the beginning of getting involved, about supporting the 12 Visions movement, which is by just telling people about this show. And but there are other ways too. You can also support the show financially if you wish. You can do that by going to patreon.com/creatinganewworld and pledging to pay a dollar amount per episode produced to the show. You can support the show by paying as little as $1 per episode or as much as you want, and you can also limit the amount you pay each month if you so desire. And other ways to promote the show is to go on social media, Facebook, Google+, other places, and tell people about the show, what you think of it. I want to thank Bob McCaffrey for joining us on this episode. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, Bill.
Mm-hmm. And also I would like to thank Harry Dolgen for joining us on this episode.
I loved it. Thanks for having me on, or having been had. Just kidding. It was a lot of fun.
And I want to thank anyone who watches this episode, and feel free to give us feedback either on the Google Plus page of the event for this episode, or by sending me an email at whunsicker@gmail.com. I'll repeat that one more time, whunsicker@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and I would like to wish everyone wealth, health, peace, happiness, and prosperity.
Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.